Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is a very exciting day. My friend Erin and I will be previewing the 2019 US National Figure Skating Championships and the dance discipline. And I'm so excited Erin is on with me because she knows so much about dance. She's so knowledgeable about the sport in general, and I know nothing about this discipline. So Erin is the star of my show, and Erin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be back.
All right, let's get right into it. So, I have in my notes gold medal prediction, Madison, Hubbell, and Zachary, Donohue. Is that the same with you?
Yes, I think that it would be a pretty crazy scenario for anything other than that to happen at this point. They have been finishing steadily around 20 points above the other U.S. teams who have competed internationally this year. And I think the only, and I'm sure we'll get to this, I think the only possible X factor is Madison, Chock, and Evan Bates, who we have not seen this season. She's been recovering from surgery for her ankle injury they were struggling with the entire Olympic season. And they also have changed coaches. So if they actually end up competing, which, I mean, you never really know, we don't know how her recovery is, I think they're the only team that potentially could score within reach of Hubbell and Donohue.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that Madison and Zach can afford to have a fall or two overall in this competition and still win the gold medal?
I think that that's probably pretty likely for them just because they do have such a cushion that they've built. I mean, they're one of the top teams in the world right now. I mean, the only team that's scored higher than them is Papadakis and Cizeron all season. So I think that they're in a pretty great spot coming into these nationals. I mean, they're the defending champions as well, and they just won their first Grand Prix final. And I think that it would have to be pretty disastrous for them to not pull off a win. But, you know, they have been kind of prone to some mistakes in the past. You never quite know. And I mean, there are certainly a good number of teams kind of waiting to swoop in. I just don't really see them making up that many points this quickly.
No, I agree with you, and I have a new favorite word to use in figure skating when I can, and it is undefeated. And Madison,
Yes.
Hubbell, and Zach Donohue are undefeated so far this season, won both of their Grand Prix events, including the U.S. Classic and the final, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they are the first U.S. dance team to win the final after Meryl and Charlie?
Yes, and Meryl and Charlie were the first, so they're
wow.
only the second ever to win it. So that's a pretty great accomplishment for them.
Absolutely. So I think they are taking the season in stride. I gotta say, I usually love both of their programs from the very beginning of the season, but this year was quite different. It took some time for them to grow on me, especially at Skate America and Skate Canada. That free dance, the Romeo and Juliet, was not what I was expecting from them. But I gotta say, after taking 5 weeks off and revamping both their rhythm dance and their free dance, I actually really like both of their programs now, especially how they were skated at the final.
That's, you know, and you've seen them live this season, which I have not. So I'm just curious to hear that take on it. But I don't know. I also don't love their free dance. It has grown on me a little bit. It's always kind of struck me as a Tessa and Scott program that their coaches never got to give to Tessa and Scott, maybe.
I see that.
And I think that Madison and Zach are a really special and unique team, and they have a lot of special qualities. And I don't think this program is as special as they are. I think that it's one of those programs that you could kind of see a lot of the teams in the field pulling off. Whereas I think their free dance, the Olympic season, for example, that was kind of jazzy and different. I think that was a program that I couldn't necessarily see the other teams doing as well as they did. And even their one from the year before, where they had kind of the medley of love songs, so like I Want to Dance with Somebody. And I thought that was a really nice program for them as well. And this one just feels a little expected compared to those. It's a little more of a traditional choice. And I think I wish that they did something a little bit more outside the box. And it doesn't help that it seems like everyone is skating to Romeo and Juliet this year again in every discipline. But I don't know. I think that it does help that they revamped some of the choreography. I think their short dance or rhythm dance, sorry, I'm not quite used to that change yet. I think the rhythm dance definitely looked better at the final, especially considering I think Zach said that they had only run through the new version about 5 times
That's
before
right.
that event. But I think that especially because a lot of teams have been struggling in the rhythm dance this season, I think they really wanted to try to give themselves their best shot, especially as they move towards Worlds.
I will say seeing them live at Skate America and Skate Canada, it really helps that they perform really well. I mean, gosh, with ladies, I think the commentators usually like to say they're wearing the crown, and they're wearing their crowns really well this season. They're coming out so confident, and it's almost like they don't have a worry in the world, and that's how they should always skate. But yeah, the programs are not my favorite. At Skate Canada, actually, Piper and Paul's free dance was my favorite.
Yes, I think that that's also one of my favorite programs of the season. I mean, it's interesting because even looking at the rest of these US teams, I think because of the tango for the rhythm dance, it seems like almost everyone has chosen like a softer, more lyrical free dance. And I think some teams are doing more creative things with that than others, but it's a definite theme this season where there's a stark contrast between the two programs for most teams.
And I'm just starting to get into ice dance. Probably this is maybe my second or third year following it really closely. And I gotta say, I'm pretty let down by a lot of the rhythm dances, mainly because I'm not a tango romantica person, especially after we've had hip hop and Latin as the free dance music choices. But, each team is trying to do their best, and I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you a question about Madison, Hubbell, and Zach Donohue. If we look at their program component marks, which are really high, by the way, and I think deservedly so, can you explain what makes their skating skills really great beyond the depth of edge? Because that's all I can commentate on.
Yeah, so I think one big thing with them is also their speed. I think that they're a very powerful team, and they're both very tall, and I think they move across the ice very smoothly and very quickly, especially compared to some other teams in this field. And I think also just to me, skating skills is really just the ease with which they're skating across the ice. And I think they do make it look easy most of the time. And I think that it's actually been kind of telling because most teams have been really struggling with that tango romantica pattern this season. And people have been getting really hammered on those levels at every event so far. And I think that it sort of separates the teams a little bit because there are so few where I think it does look smooth and easy. And I think that even Madison and Zach really have a little bit of work to do. I think you can kind of see the kinks sometimes. Personally, the only team that I think has really nailed that pattern this season is Papadakis and Cizeron so far, but other teams are getting there. And I think that it's an interesting way to compare the teams when they are doing this same pattern. But I really think for them, their skating skills, not only the depth of edge, but also the extension, the posture, the speed across the ice, and just the general carriage and maturity that they show. I mean, I think that that's really what's made them such a world-class team.
Would you agree that Tessa and Scott of Canada were really good with the dance pattern in the rhythm dance?
Yes. I mean, I think that their patterns were fantastic. I think also, I feel like the last time they did the Tango Romantico was back in maybe 2009 or so. And I think there are some videos out there of them doing that pattern if anybody wants to go check that out. But I do think that their compulsories were very, very strong. And I think that part of it comes from they were competing back in the day when ice dance had the compulsory dance.
That's
as
right.
a huge part of the event. And that really, I mean, that was something that they excelled at and it kind of helped them when they were coming up. But that was really tricky for some teams. Some teams that weren't as strong as those, it was affecting them. So I think that, they probably had that emphasized earlier in their training, more so than some of the newer teams today who never had to compete that way.
And I mentioned that Tessa and Scott because they're one of the few teams where I can enjoy watching them perform the dance pattern. I just think it seems so off in many other programs with many other teams. You could tell that they're specifically choreographing it and it doesn't flow with the other elements of the program. So good to hear from you. And also, I like to think of it with skating skills and ice dance, and this is a rookie speaking. Please remember that, people, is that, let's see, I think it takes a lot of leg muscle to make ice dance look easy. So I think Madison, Hubbell, Zachary, Donohue have amazing strength in their legs, and it doesn't really Like, it doesn't look like they're trying. And I think a perfect example of that in their free dance is the step sequence. I mean, they stay on one foot,
Yes.
moving edge, turning like opposite, and then coming together. I know it's probably a total of like 8 seconds in the program, but it's a powerful one in my opinion. And I put in my notes here throughout all of their revamping of the programs. I'm so glad they kept the curve lift.
Yes. Yeah, I think that their lifts are interesting to me because they're both so tall. They can't really do things that are as acrobatic as some of the other teams. Like, especially if we end up seeing Chock and Bates, I think they really have some great acrobatic lifts with really interesting changes of position because she's tiny, and I think that it's just easier physically for them to do that. But I think Madison and Zach have kind of had to get a little bit more creative with finding, especially new lifts each season. That's a big thing for me is I tend to get a little bored when teams recycle lifts from season to season. I mean, I know that everyone does it a little bit, but I enjoy seeing something new, especially if it's a similar program. It just makes it really feel fresh and exciting.
I agree. Or what I notice is a lot of teams will do a lift the following season that was made popular by one dance team the prior season. Is that a thing?
Yes, it definitely is. Like, I remember even a few years ago, nobody was doing the stationary lifts because I think that generally people felt it didn't score as high and it wasn't worth as many points. But then Papadakis and Cizeron started doing them very well. And then it seemed like the next year everybody was doing a stationary lift in their program, which I think is really interesting.
I totally remember that. So, Madison, Hubbell, Zachary, Donohue, I congratulate you in advance. I hope I did not jinx you. All right, let's talk about, it sounds like these are your favorite American Ice Dance team, Kaitlin, Hawayek, and Jean-Luc Baker.
Yes, I have just been such a fan of them for years now. I think that they have a really special kind of just it factor and star quality that I think it's always stood out to me. And I've really enjoyed watching them grow over the seasons. And I think this season so far has been a big one for them is they changed coaches. They're now being coached by Marie France and Patrice, same as Hubbell and Donohue, same as Papadakis and Cizeron, and same as Chock and Bates now, even though we have not yet to see what that has done to their skating. But I think that especially Kaitlin and Jean-Luc got to go to the Grand Prix final for the first time. They got to win a Grand Prix event. And I think that that's been such a great learning experience for them, especially because, the last few years, it's been such a logjam at the top of U.S. ice dance, and there hasn't really been much room to move up. So usually the post-Olympic season is a great opportunity for a team like them who's kind of been waiting for their turn for some time now.
Absolutely. And I meant to say this at the start of the video, but I'll just say it now, that this season, internationally, we have two of the top American Ice Dance teams from last season absent, which is the Shiputanis and Chock and Bates, but yet we have so many teams medaling on the Grand Prix circuit. Isn't that amazing?
It really is. And I think it just shows that these teams are ready, and they have been ready, and now it's their moment. Like, they're finally getting that opportunity with some of these other teams kind of moving away from the sport or taking a season off or whatever it may be. So I always think that that's kind of interesting for the post-Olympic year, especially in ice dance, because you can see so much consistency in ice dance results. You're kind of used to seeing the same few teams at the top over and over. So when it gets shaken up, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and qualifying for the Grand Prix final was amazing for Kaitlin and Jean-Luc because they earned a new season's best in the rhythm dance.
Yes, yeah, I'm very proud of them. I think that it's a great opportunity that they even got to be there, and I think that hopefully it's the first of many. But I also think that just participating in the Grand Prix final reflects very well on you as a team with the judges, and I think that helps momentum going into nationals as well.
Looking at my notes, I do think their free dance is amazing. The Irrepressibles, beautiful choice. I think I played that while I was at work one day, just in the background, and my coworker was like, "Hey, what happened to that Christmas music you had on?" I was like, "Oh, it wasn't Christmas music, but it was beautiful." And then we talked about their score. Their total score at the Grand Prix final, at NHK, because they scored higher there, 184.63. And I believe Madison, Hubbell, and Zach Donohue are at the 200-plus range.
Yeah, they have 205.35 as their highest from the season. So like I said, there's really still a 20-point gap. There's really not much of a comparison to be made still. But, once we start going down to the next few teams, you'll see that those scores are a lot closer. So
That's right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Kaitlin and Jean-Luc are former junior world champions?
yes, they are former junior world champions. They kind of, really broke out when they were on the juniors. They sort of won everything in like the 2014 season. And then they've just been kind of waiting their turn in seniors while the last kind of changing of the guard was happening. And I think this coaching change was great for them, because the one thing about them that stresses me out a little bit is they have been kind of mistake prone in some of their events. They've had a couple disasters. Like I remember nationals a couple of years ago. They had multiple falls in the free dance. And so I think that they kind of needed to make a change if they really wanted to seize the opportunity of this season. And I'm really glad that they did, because I think that it's showing in their skating. And hopefully they can, keep it together, not have those mistakes, and really have a moment at nationals.
Yeah, I think they definitely can, especially with the free dance. I can see that getting a standing ovation if skated perfectly clean at nationals. What else did I want to say about them? I have a friend, Nicole, who knows a lot about ice dance, and she says that she thinks Jean-Luc Baker is one of the best male ice dancers out there. Do you agree with her?
I do. I think that where you can really tell is watch his feet. Just watch his feet while they're skating. He's so precise, and his knee bend is so great. And I think that he is a very, very strong skater. And, so is she, but I think that he really has something special, and his technical abilities are very strong. And yeah, I think also the judges seem to like them. They always kind of have, when they skate well, they're usually rewarded for it. I think the thing, like I said, that's kind of held them back a little bit is that they have been prone to some mistakes over the years. But hopefully, this season I think has been a little bit better with that. So hopefully their new coaches are helping them.
Yeah, so I gotta say that I love Jean-Luc in I think it's called, is it the slide move?
Yes, the choreographic sliding movement.
Yes, that's a thing apparently. Year. Yes, because I'm seeing it a few times, and Jean-Luc just owns it. Like, wow.
He does. I really like that moment in their program. It's one of my favorite moments from their free dance, for sure.
All right, so Kaitlin and Jean-Luc, for sure a podium finish. Silver, bronze, I'm gonna go with bronze based on the history of Madison, Chock, and Evan Bates scores.
I agree. I think that if Chock and Bates compete at nationals, and if they are in comparable form to where we've seen them in the past, I think that they will likely get the silver. And I think that Kaitlin and Jean-Luc are the strongest for that bronze, which is an important spot because we have 3 spots at Worlds, and I know that they're going to want to be going there.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything to say about Madison, Chock, and Evan Bates? I don't think anyone has seen their programs unless you have special access to the training facility in Montreal, which I don't.
No, the only time I saw them skating recently was on Nathan Chen's Instagram story when he was up in Montreal, probably getting some choreography refreshed. But yeah, I think nobody's going to really know what to expect. We don't know what the programs are. We don't know what kind of shape they're in. It's going to be a surprise. I think it'll be interesting to see. And I'm such a big fan of what that team of coaches has been able to do for so many teams that I think that they could potentially do great things for Madison and Evan as well. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, in doing my research for this video, I did want to see where I think Madison and Evan could place, because Kaitlin and Jean-Luc are doing so well this season. But internationally, their program component marks range in the mid-8s, which is great for them. But Madison, Chock, and Evan Bates last season in their 2 Grand Prix events had PCSs in the low 9s. So usually that doesn't change too much in ice dance from what I understand. And it's hard to judge past technical content with things changing from one season to the next. So that's why I place Madison and Evan in 2nd place here at Nationals.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, like I said, if she's healthy and if they are in good condition, I think that they will likely finish very well. But they're really the X factor in all of this, is we don't really know how they're going to play into this event. So, there's always something exciting. But I think also, U.S. National, the scoring is always a little bit inflated. And I think that They have a lot of fans and a lot of support. And I think especially, I mean, that was really heartbreaking for them at the Olympics. Like they're not personally one of my favorite teams, but I was so sad for them, because that was just such a horrible kind of fluke moment. And you know that that's not how they wanted to have that Olympic experience.
Yeah. Did you watch the recent interview of Madison and Zach by Golden Skate?
I'm not sure if I did.
Okay, well, Ted Flett, who was interviewing them, asked them about their take on Chock and Bates, and they said that, they didn't give away the programs because it's not their place to, and I respect that, but they did say that with their 2 new programs this season, that you can really see their chemistry as a couple on the ice, which is really different from the past season. So I'm excited about that. I hope I'm not let down after hearing that piece of information.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because, I mean, they are together off the ice now. I think they have been for some time, but I think that it's interesting because Madison and Zach have been the ones where that's been played up a lot, I think, kind of that connection between them. That's sort of been their thing. So it'll be interesting now to have Madison and Evan kind of maybe trying to do something along similar lines. I mean, I don't know. I still think my favorite Madison and Evan program was their Under Pressure program from a couple of years ago. And so I kind of like it when they do something a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more stylized. So I vastly prefer that to the Imagine program from the Olympic season. But I don't know. I'll be very curious to see what they're doing.
Me too. They usually have unique program choices, not always popular with the general public, but sometimes I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about these next few teams as fighting for the pewter, dark horse for the podium. First off that I have that were a surprise to me is Chrisrina Carreira and Anthony Ponomarenko. 2 words I have to say. So young, but so good. They are the reigning junior world silver medalists, and it's their first season as seniors, and it's been so impressive so far to win a Grand Prix medal at the Grand Prix competition in Russia is huge your first year as senior, especially in ice dance, it sounds like.
Yes, I mean, I think they've definitely had a great kind of breakout season. They were kind of one of the teams that, when some of the other teams we talked about moved up from juniors last year, they kind of stayed behind one more year. And, maybe that is a choice that's paying off for them. And I think that they certainly, I mean, they are so young. I mean, I believe they're 18 and 19, maybe, if even. And so they could really have a very long future in the sport. But I think that they certainly have, I mean, they're one of the 5 teams that won a medal on the Grand Prix this year. And, I think that it's going to be interesting to see where they factor in. I mean, they are scoring right in there within a point of the next 2 teams that I'm sure you're going to mention. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out, especially because I'm sure even teams that don't make the podium, there might be 4 continent spots up for grabs. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these teams.
Yeah, I wonder how the Federation is going to play that scenario out. But my notes on them is very lyrical skating, musically expressive, mature for their age. Watching them skate, their free dance is like seeing them float across the ice. Comments on their rhythm dance, great ice coverage and edge quality on the pattern dance. What do you think of their pattern dance? I thought it was good.
I think that their pattern is pretty strong. I think the biggest thing that you see with a lot of teams are kind of hesitant when they're skating that pattern this year. And I think that kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit. It makes it, like we were talking about how the very best teams make it look easy. I think not a lot of teams are succeeding at making that pattern look easy. And I think it's also important to say that it's not easy.
No, it's so hard to do.
Yeah, like I did solo ice dance just to take the various tests, and I never did the Tango Romantica because I stopped at gold, and that was an international dance. But I did other tangos, and you have to be so specific with every movement. I mean, even when you're testing, if you are half a beat off with when you're starting a step, you're going to fail. Yeah, like it's just an automatic failure. And you have to be exactly on the right edge, and a lot of the movements are supposed to be very sharp. That's the whole point of a tango. And so I think that a lot of these teams, especially the younger teams, you do see them kind of hesitating because they want to make sure that they're placing every edge correctly. They want to make sure they're getting those key points, which, I mean, it's not easy. But I think that I did enjoy their tango character in their rhythm dance. I think that it seems to suit them. And I think that they're pretty versatile, too, because I also think their more lyrical free dance suits them very well.
That's right. I said this earlier, but I don't like a lot of the rhythm dances. I actually like theirs mainly because they're so energetic. So however I feel about the music or the theme, it's as long as they skate the way they do, it makes me enjoy watching them. So that's a breath of fresh air to see. Also, I want to say that when I look at them perform, I just see it in their eyes. It looks like they're thirsty for success, kind of like they really want to win all the time. And I think that could take them very far, with competitive figure skating.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, they've been in the news a little bit because of she's trying to get citizenship, but she is Canadian, I believe. And they want to figure that out, before the next Olympic cycle. And I believe her petition was denied at first to kind of expedite that process, and I believe they're appealing it. But I think that speaks to that competitive fire that you're talking about, is they're already thinking 4 years ahead. They already want to be one of those top teams by then. They want to be setting themselves up for that success, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Oh, that's great to know. I had no idea. Oh.
Yeah, there's been a couple of articles out there, because it's basically what happened with Tanith Belbin when she kind of got her citizenship expedited so that she could represent the U.S. in the Olympics. They've created kind of a new rule for, I believe, athletes of extraordinary ability, and she's petitioning to kind of be able to do that too. And it doesn't affect, they could still go to Worlds, they could still go to other championships, but when it comes time for the Olympics, they're going to need to have that citizenship sorted out. So I hope that it works out for them.
Yeah, they are thinking ahead. So we have another team, Rachael Parson and Michael Parson, brother-sister team. Some history on them. They are former U.S. junior champions, and it is their second year skating on the senior level. They won their first Grand Prix medal at NHK, which was a bronze, and was about 5 points behind the winners, actually, Kaitlin and Jean-Luc there. So pretty impressive. I will say that I watched an interview on them not too long ago. It must have been by MK Blades, and they said that their first year as senior competitors, they struggled with the extended length of the free dance. They said the extra 30 seconds really took it out on them all season long. But it sounds like this season they are ready to conquer every free dance because they are used to the, is it 4 minutes? Or
sorry?
Is it 4 minutes? How long is a free dance?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. It's actually a little bit shorter than it was last year.
Okay, so they are ready to skate their hearts out. Every 4 minutes, they have to go out and do that free dance and competition. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I like them. I personally think that of Carreira and Ponomarenko, and also of McNamara and Carpenter, who I'm sure we'll talk about next, I think that the Parsons have just a tiny bit more finesse, a tiny bit more polish. It's really so difficult to compare those three teams because they've been scoring within a point of each other all season. But I do think that when the Parsons skate well, I think that kind of like Madison and Zach, they're very tall and can be very powerful skaters. And I think that translates nicely into just quality and maturity and really seeming like they belong on that senior level. And I think that what's interesting challenge for them is, they are a brother-sister team, which people talk about all the time in ice dance. Is it a disadvantage? Is it not? And I think with the tango, that's obviously not the easiest thing for them to find a way to interpret, but they seem to be doing pretty well, and their free dance is interesting to me. They're skating to Build a Home, which Papadakis and Cizeron won Worlds with only a few years ago.
That's right.
So I think that's a little bit of a bold choice to pick something that's so fresh in people's minds still from such a top team. But I do like the theme of that song for them as a brother and sister. I think that's kind of nice. So, and I do like the song in general. So it's nice to see people skate to it. I was just surprised when I saw that they chose it so soon.
I think they're a very athletic dance team. Love the rotational lift and the free dance. But I gotta say, in the rhythm dance, my main notes were that I would like to give them a little bit more bigger presentation, confidence, maybe smoother movements between the elements. Is that just me?
No, I think definitely. I mean, I think that there are certainly ways that they can continue to polish their programs. I mean, I think there are some transitions, especially that are a little bit more rough around the edges. I mean, you really want the best free dances I think are seamless, and you can barely tell where one element begins and the next ends. And I do think that with some of these teams that are newer to the senior level, you can kind of see those divisions a little bit more clearly than you would want to. But I think that they have a lot of potential. You know, their twizzles seemed a little bit better so far this season. That's something they kind of struggled with a little bit in the past. So I think that, they personally would be my pick for pewter if we wanted to go with the three that we've discussed so far. But, it's really going to depend on the day.
Okay, so this is the perfect transition because my pick for the pewter is actually Lorraine, McNamara, and Quinn Carpenter. And to me, I'm sorry, this is the Tessa and Scott team. They just give me strong Tessa and Scott vibes physically. People, please don't come at me with their skating qualities, physically speaking. But they are good. This season, they were the former World Junior Champions. That seems to be history with U.S. ice dance, which is great. Fourth at Skate America, but they did score really well there, and then a bronze medal at the Grand Prix in Finland.
Yeah, I think they really shine in the rhythm dance because I think the tango character really suits them. I really like the way they get into it. I think that's just a style that they seem to enjoy. I remember they had a free dance either last season or the season before that was kind of tango-y. So I think that it's just something that they're kind of more comfortable with maybe than some teams. But I do really like them. Sometimes I would like her extension to be a little bit more polished. I would like to see a little bit better posture. But I do really like them. And I mean, it's really crazy to look at the scores because I think so their rhythm dance score this season is actually higher than Kaitlin and Jean-Luc's. It's actually the second highest among the U.S. teams who have competed, which, I mean, like I was saying, I do think that style really suits them. But, it's in their free dance, they haven't scored as high, and they actually have the fifth highest free dance score behind both the Parsons and Carreira and Ponomarenko. So that seems to be where they need to put in the extra work leading up to nationals is make sure they're getting those points and levels in the free dance, because when you have all these teams within a point of each other, and even Kaitlin and Jean-Luc are only scoring about 4 points overall ahead of these three teams. And 4 points in ice dance can go away really quickly with a major mistake. If you get any element that's invalid, anything like that, it could be an even playing field. So, I think there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room, and these teams are really going to have to bring their A game and try to avoid mistakes as much as possible. Because that can really, it can be, as we've seen in the past in ice dance at the Olympics and everything, it can be a disaster. One tiny mistake, just ask Madison and Zach, who did not win a bronze medal because he just one moment, one lapse of concentration. So it's going to be really interesting.
And it's not always a fall that can get you in ice dance, although don't get me wrong, that's not great at all. Sometimes it's missing a rotation on a twizzle or a few rotations, or not getting enough rotations on the combination spin. What's another
one
big
thing
way?
that I think is interesting? Well, yeah, I think one thing that's interesting this season is they're scoring the twizzles separately for each partner, and then they're, I believe, averaging the different levels. So, like, if one partner messes up their twizzles, the other partner can still receive a level 4, which I think is kind of nice. It's rewarding it, I think, fairly. But of course, obviously, there's still punished if one member of the team makes a mistake. But I think that also just this season with rhythm dance, a big factor has been those key points and the levels and the patterns. Because we've seen, top teams, even at the Grand Prix final, getting level 1s on those patterns if the judges aren't, if they're being strict. And it'll be interesting to see how an American judging panel at nationals is going to be, if they're going to be as harsh as the international panels that we've seen this season. But I think that that's going to be a big one because you don't want to, I mean, especially if you're going to be within a point of each other, you don't want to be digging yourself out of a hole after the rhythm dance. So I think that everyone's going to really want to get those levels on the patterns. And then I agree with you. I mean, you can lose a rotation on a twizzle. You can have an extended lift as a common deduction.
Yes.
If they hold it even a couple seconds too long, that's a point off. And sometimes that's all it takes. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's really a big one. And I mean, also the step sequences, there's a lot that can go awry there. I mean, there's different points you have to hit, different features to get those levels. So, it's really interesting because when mistakes sometimes aren't quite as apparent as in the other disciplines, when they're jumping, they can still be very costly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember watching you live tweet the Grand Prix final, and you're like,
yeah.
This tech caller, oh my, they're being stingy with their levels. And it's harder to notice in ice dance sometimes. I think ice dance is one of the disciplines where I think it's very beneficial for someone like me to watch from home and see the tech box, because live in competition you could be totally thrown off guard unless you're keeping up with Twitter and the hashtag live. You could totally be off guard with the lower score because a team lost so many levels. So I like to be informed with ice dance with the tech box with the
Absolutely.
NBC Sports Gold Pass. I think that's what it's called.
Yes. And that even helps me because I think I know a fair amount about ice dance. I still can't watch a pattern and tell you, yes, they hit every key point. It goes by so quickly, and it's so, I mean, you would really, I think, need to watch it in slow-mo for me to be able to say. Because, I mean, the things that go into the key points is like, you have to be on the right beat of the music, you have to have the right edge, the right change of edge, the right turn, the right hold. I mean, there's so many things, and these callers are looking for it all in real time. So, I mean, I think it is hard to the naked eye to kind of spot all of that. The one thing I do think that you can see when you watch ice dance in person is the ice coverage and the depth of edge. Because I think especially in the pattern, you can see, some teams' patterns are just so much bigger and more powerful. And I think that translates sometimes more in the arena than it does on TV. But I agree that it's more exciting to kind of follow with that tech box because the levels are so crucial to what the scores end up being, and it's great to be able to see that in real time.
Mm-hmm. Also, with the new range of grade of execution being +5 and -5, if a team wants to get really great grade of execution marks, there's also so many things in the boxes to tick off, and things can relate to like how well it was choreographed, so it's on the music, or a transition in and out, or just how well it was executed, how deep the edges were. It's so hard to tell sometimes.
It is, and I mean, I think it's still, the new range of GOE is a learning curve for everyone still, because even the skaters are still learning what a +5 looks like, what elements are being rewarded that. And I think judges are figuring it out too. Anytime change, it's going to be a little bit of an experimentation period, where we're kind of seeing being rewarded in different ways. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, this will be, the first nationals with that change. And I have a feeling that because it's nationals, we might see some more +5s than we would see at, say, the Grand Prix final. But, you never know.
That's right. So one last ice dance team that I wanted to mention, and you can mention more after this if you'd like. I think they're going to be a crowd favorite, and they're Karina, Manta, and Joseph Johnson. Obviously, we all know them as the host pick for Skate America. They finished in last place, but I gotta say, they were some really great performers, especially that free dance to Sweet Dreams. Oh, I think they have some very dynamic qualities. The main thing I can think of in my head is how they did their combination spin. It's not all the time you see the man doing the camel spin with the female assisting. So that was really cool to see. When I watched them, I think they're actually doing a good job. I think they're really enjoyable to watch, but I see the tech box live and it looks like they lose a lot of levels and a lot of grade of execution marks. Can you help explain to us why that is?
I think I also really enjoy them. I do think they'll be a crowd favorite, especially because the Sweet Dreams program is in such contrast to all of these lyrical free dances that we're seeing this season. And I think that's really going to kind of wake people up and be a very exciting moment. I mean, I really think that what it comes down to is well, both the level of difficulty in the program and also just how well they're really executing it. I think that they lack the smoothness and the finesse of some of the top teams. You know, they're not as experienced. And I think that a lot of times their program, you know, they are like very known for their showmanship, and they really are great performers to the audience. And I think that sometimes that doesn't quite translate to, if you look at what their feet are doing, it might not be as precise. You know, the elements might be really fun to watch, but they might not be getting the highest level. I think that it really just comes down to experience. And that's why I think even getting to be at Ski America was such a great opportunity for them, you know, because getting to have that international event when, I mean, it's been so competitive to get these assignments with all of these great teams we've been talking about. So, but I do think that they're definitely going to be a crowd favorite. I mean, they're one of the only other returning teams that we've seen before.
Okay.
What I have written down is there's going to be 12 dance teams in the field at nationals.
Oh.
And as best I can tell, 4 of them we've never seen before at senior nationals. So the other 2, other than Karina and Joe, the only other one that we have seen in the past is Alicia and Stephen Reynolds, who are another brother and sister team. People who watch nationals regularly will probably remember them. They've been there a couple of years now. But it's going to be a lot of new faces, and I do think that, I don't know, I would expect Karina and Joe to definitely be right behind the top teams we've been talking about. You know, I think that of that next tier, they're going to really stand out, and they certainly have a lot of support. And I love following Joseph on Twitter. I think he is always very amusing. So I'm always rooting for them, and I think that they're going to stand out in the field because of their program choice in the free dance. It's going to be a nice contrast to a lot of the other programs.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe their free dance can go viral after nationals.
It might. You know, you never know. There's always one moment that surprises people like that.
That's right. Well, Erin, we finally made it. 40 minutes talking about ice dance.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo! Well, thank you so much for being on my channel again. It's really helped me out a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I can't wait to see what happens in January.
Woohoo! All right, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.
Bye.